Well, welcome everyone. My name is Don Ficken. I'm with the Library Telescope Task Force, and we've been hosting monthly YouTubes. Our task force is basically a volunteer group that's actually coming from organizations worldwide. We're promoting the Library Telescope program. We're working on maintenance procedures and ways to grow it internationally. So we're very excited to have you tonight. This program has been around. The Library Telescopes program has been around since 2008. We have telescopes and actually quite a few binoculars. We're over 890 library locations. What I mean by location, if your library has, say, 20 branches or something, each of those branches would count as one. We are now, and believe it or not, 6 countries, including the United States, Canada. We've got several countries in Europe, and then we've added New Zealand on as our latest participating organization. So we're very excited to have a growing organization that is really trying to grow this really nice program. So this is our goal, to grow the program and share best practices. If you check out our Facebook, I got Tom Lynch on me with tonight. He's he's a co-leader of this organization. He's been working hard. We have something like 5,000 plus followers. He does a lot of great postings all the time about everything about just the Library Telescope program and astronomy in general. It's a really great way to check out your interest in astronomy and just find what others are saying. We have a pretty nice website. It has a world map. You can actually move into, say, for example, in Canada into a province and just click on your province, and we'll list whatever libraries that we know are participating. We have people registering all the times, and that's the same true of other countries and states and so forth. On our website, on librarytelescope.org, and also we post to Facebook, one of our members with the Astronomical League, he prepares once each month a nice star map, as you can see here on this page right here. It's got Mars, the ecliptic. It's this one's in mid-February. It's a mid-February night sky. This is in English, but we also have it in Spanish, so that's a really nice basically a map to look at. And often he'll include a few other things, like if there's something going on with the solar activity during the month, something that's maybe like Venus or Mars or something else. So if you check out the homepage of librarytelescope.org, or usually if you just search our Facebook page, we'll have a number of these maps available, and they're free for download. Just have fun with them. And even if you don't have a telescope, you can go out and just look with your naked eye with binoculars. That's great. So we've been doing these programs for quite a while. We've been building a YouTube library of these different ones. This is just a partial list. Last month, we had 2023's most fascinating events that could be seen through the Library Telescope. We recorded that, like tonight, we're recording this, and we'll post this out in the next day or so on YouTube. Today, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes, we're going to be talking about partnering with the library to launch a library program. And then next month, it's kind of a fun one we've got. Is a solar system activities for a library telescope night. So got a lot of different varieties, everything from how to launch a program to observe the moon. If you are a person maintaining a telescope, about the durability, how that works, 3D printing, just lots of different topics, for something for everyone. So once again, you can check our YouTube down the bottom here. I think we've got the listing, just librarytelescope.org, and just go up to the very top of that website, click the YouTube link, and it'll take you there. Okay. All right. So we are going to have the program. What I'm asking is that we hold questions to the end. You could, if you're in Zoom, you could just type them in the Q&A area. If you're on Facebook, just type them into the comments area, and we'll be watching for your questions. And when we get all done, we'll have our presenter tonight, Keith Short. I said from the astronomical. Sorry, Keith. You're actually from Rockford Amateur Astronomers, so I didn't somehow change that. But you are part of the Astronomical League, just part of your club here. But anyway, let's get going with that. I'm going to stop my share, and Keith, our presenter, will introduce himself and bring up his PowerPoint, and we'll get the program going.
Okay.
Well, awesome, Keith. Well, you want to go ahead and bring that maximize? I get it.
Trying to. There we go.
No, it's not good. There you go. We got it. Perfect. That's great.
Okay. Well, hello. My name is Keith Short, and I'm pleased to be with you tonight. Don was looking for some help with these presentations, and I'm pleased to be helpful to him after he was so helpful to me in getting our own program rolling here in Rockford. So I'm going to be talking about getting a library telescope program going in at your club and in the libraries in your town. So in overview, I'll be talking about how you persuade your club that this is something that they want to do, how you persuade libraries that library telescopes are something they want, how you fundraise to get the money for the telescopes, how you publicize the fact that the libraries have scopes so that they get usage and people are aided in discovering the night sky. I'll talk about the launch events that are part of the starting of a new library's telescope program. And then I'll talk about sustaining the program. So, yeah. First of all, selling the club. I don't know what your library, what your astronomy club may be like, but if it's anything like my club, it's a real interesting mix of people, but it's mostly people of a certain age, and there's a certain reluctance to change anything. And so when one of our members came back from a visit to friends in St. Louis that are in the St. Louis Astronomy Club, he mentioned that there was a program that they were doing in St. Louis where they were putting telescopes in libraries, and he thought it was a great idea. And everybody at the meeting kind of looked at each other and thought, sounds like more work. We're already doing public nights, and that's enough work. Thank you very much. No thanks. But it kind of planted a seed, and I thought about it a little bit. And I was still working at the time, and I really didn't have time to devote much energy to it. But I thought, that might be a pretty good thing. And then I retired, and so suddenly I had time on my hands, and I thought, boy, this library telescopes would give me something to do, worthwhile for my community as I'm retiring. And so I looked at the website for librarytelescopes.org. Excellent website, very, very great information. I read about it, and I said, I'll call my library and talk to the librarian. It's a pretty small library, and see if we can get it going there. So I picked up the phone and I called, and they said, well, the librarian's not there. Why don't you call back in a day or two? So I called back in a day or two, and eventually she agreed to talk to me, but she was busy, and could she call me back at a certain time? And she didn't call back, and so I called her again and chased her around on the phone for a while. Finally got to talk to her, and she said, we just don't have budget to do something like that. We're really not interested at all. We do books. There'd be no place to store these telescopes. It would kick around and probably get damaged and wouldn't last very long, and we're just not interested. And she said, and we have no way to pay for it. So that was kind of that. I was quite discouraged. And so I did what you all should do if you become discouraged, and that's pick up the phone and call Don Ficken, because Don is awesome, and he has been there before. He knows all the tricks, and he will set you straight. So Don said, Keith, you screwed up. You did it wrong. And it's little wonder that she said no. She said, when you want to sell the program, you have to get a telescope and show it to people, and it helps them get their mind around it. So that's what we did. But I started off by talking to the board and saying, hey, I'm going to try to go forward with this library telescope thing. I don't think I can do it on my own. Will you guys help? And they said, yeah, if it sounds like a good idea, this might be a growth thing. So we'll take a vote on it at the next club meeting, and then we can go ahead. So at the next club meeting, we took a vote, and the members voted unanimously to go ahead with the library telescope thing, particularly as I was doing most of the work. So they agreed to it. So I told my wife I was going to buy a library telescope so I'd have one to show, because that's what Don Ficken said you had to do. You had to take the telescope with you. And so she said, well, why don't you get a grant to pay for it? And I said, what? And so we went to Thrivent and applied for a grant, and they gave me $250 to spend to help subsidize the cost of the library telescope. I think back then the telescope and the zoom eyepiece that I purchased was about $310 or something like that, because I bought it, with no discounts or anything. We can get it cheaper now. But I bought the telescope and the eyepiece and took it to the astronomy club, and it generated some enthusiasm there. And I decided that since I'd had bad success at my library, I would try a different library in town. And so I went to the library. I called that library, got an appointment to go in and talk to the director, not on the telephone, but face to face. So let's go down a slide. So when it comes time to sell the library, the successful strategy is to be there in person. If you can get an appointment to talk to the director, that's great, and that's what I got. And she was very enthusiastic. Turns out that at that particular library, they'd been checking out fishing poles for a couple of years, so they were accustomed to doing things and not just books and videos and whatnot. And I brought the telescope and I sat down with her and with 3 or 4 of her staff, and they said, "Oh, this is lighter than I expected. Oh, this is easy to use. Oh, suddenly the focus of the pitch was on the telescope, which is exactly where you want it. You want them to be focused on the telescope, and they quickly see that this is something that they can do, and that it would work in their library, and that it wouldn't be a huge thing to store or anything like that." So Don had recommended, I brought a scope. I had my laptop with a very short PowerPoint that talked about the history of the program a little bit. And they said, "Well, this is all great. We definitely want these, but we don't have budget for it right now. Can you help us raise the money?" And I said, "Sure, I can help with fundraising." And I said, "What do you have in mind?" And they said, "Well, there's a Rotary Club in town that has been good to us before, and this might be something that they would donate the money for." So I went to the Rotary Club and gave the pitch. So if you're going to try to get a telescope program going, you need to have a pitch. In my pitch, just to list the things that I talk about, first I say, hey, this is who I am. This is who my local astronomy club is. I talk about how long we've been around and what we've typically done. Then I talk about the library telescope program in brief overview. And I say it started here, it spread there. Now there's this many telescopes. They've come up with a telescope configuration that works. And for my particular Rotary club, there was a focus on education and youth. So I played the violins about how telescopes help build interest in science, and science builds interest in math, and that makes us a smarter, more robust country, et cetera, et cetera. And I could hear piccolos playing in the background, and it was really awesome. And the Rotary Club said, "You bet, we like this, we will do it." And they said, "Our funding cycle is starts at a certain time of year, and the checks usually get cut at this time of year. And if one of the Rotarians will nominate you, you will probably get money." So one of the Rotarians did, and we got a check 4 months later. The Rotarians liked looking through the telescope. I brought it with me to the pitch, and it was successful. We got the money, so now we had funding, and we had a library, and we had some club support. So we were off and running. And so here we are receiving the check. The person next to the person one person is the club president, one person is the Rotary Club president, one person is myself, and one person is the director of the library. So everybody was happy, but the Rotary clubs and other service clubs are not the only places where you're likely to get funding. The second library we did was funded by the Friends Group, and I went there and I gave them the pitch, and they wrote a check that night and handed me the check and said, "We want these telescopes. How soon can we get them?" And I said, "Well, pretty quick, I think." But it turns out that was during the supply chain issues. And so they had to wait 6 months. But I gave them back their money until we saw that we could actually get the telescopes. But yeah, that was a little different experience when they just handed me the money. And then the third library we're doing, and we're going to have a build party for those scopes on Saturday. That library funded their telescopes with some end of the year budget. So calling on them around Christmas time was very fortuitous because they had some budget and they wanted the telescopes. They'd seen the Cherry Valley telescopes. So a certain amount of word of mouth in the library director circles is helping us out there. And one of their telescopes is being paid for by a local philanthropist. And so that was a good thing too. But I have in mind that when I do the big library in Rockford that has 4 branches, that I'm going to try to get the local companies kind of competing to see how many of those they are willing to contribute. Because one of the things I always point out when I have my funding conversation is I point out to them that their name will be on that telescope for the next 10, 12 years. And so people will see their name, their company name, or their service club, or their friends group. Their name is going to be on that telescope for a nice long time. So once you have the telescopes ready and you've delivered them to the library, you need to help create some community buzz so that these telescopes don't sit on the credenza at the library, but are going out and doing what they're supposed to do, which is enlightening minds. And so I think we had 2 different television stations come to the library when we launched and talked to myself and the library director about the program. And one of the reporters looked through the telescope and said, "Oh, this is nice." And, stuff like that, which is very good. One of the people on our task force recently launched a program, and there was a nice splash in his newspaper that talked about the program. And things like that are also great publicity for the program to help not only with introducing to the patrons that the telescopes are there, but also to introducing to the other libraries in the region that the telescopes are an option and they should be looking into it. So that's something you want to do. You can also use social media such as Facebook to publicize the program. And the library newsletter seems to generate quite a bit of interest at that particular library. They have a very good newsletter that gets read by their patrons. And whenever we have star parties, most of the people that show up, I think, are people that saw it in their newsletter. Okay. Well, once you got the program running and the patrons are checking out the telescopes, you have to stay in touch with your libraries. I think a good plan is like 2 events per year. And I like to do events in months where it's not too bitterly cold. Cherry Valley has a nice parking lot where they can turn off some of the lights, and but it helps to go out on nights when there is the moon, because the moon is pretty easy to see. Even if there's some haziness to the sky, you can still see the moon. And if you have Jupiter or Saturn, those are perfect. Venus is great also because you can see the crescent often, and it's a bright object. Mars is okay, although it looks pretty small with the library telescope, but still it's very pretty. It's such a lovely color and whatnot. And so, like I say, 2 events per year. You need to have a team of helpers within your club that help with the build event coordination, in the training events at the libraries, because before the libraries start checking out the telescopes, you have to teach the staff about it, how to handle it, et cetera, what to tell the patrons. Then you have to do the star parties, and I've had very good luck with my club in getting people to come out for our training events and our star parties at branches. And then there's repairs. Fortunately for us, we only have had 1 library's telescopes to repair, and the repairs have been very minimal. Periodically, I stop by the library and check the alignment of the red dot finders and check to see how clean the lenses are, and they've been fine. So it's been very minimal support. when with our second library, we had an infant failure of one telescope where the zoom eyepiece became locked and would not rotate to zoom. So we had to send that back and did a warranty repair there. And aside from that, we've had minimal service. But it would be a mistake to try to make the library telescope program a one-man show. If your region is going to have more than 2 or 3 libraries, you're definitely going to need a team of people to support it. So you need to have some enthusiasm from your club that generates helpers. Because if you do it by yourself, you're going to become burned out and bitter, and that is not going to help move the program forward and put telescopes in the hands of people that, particularly youth, that will benefit from seeing the night sky. That's what I have to say. Number one, the way you sell the library program isn't you. This is what sells the library telescope program. You need to have your show and telescope, and here it is. It's been around now for 6 years, still works great, and it still sells the program. This is what sells the program. This is what sells the funding. This is what sells. The telescope sells. Make sure you have a telescope to take with you. Don, did I get that right? Is that what I heard you say?
You got that right. Why don't you unshare your screen there so we can get a full screen and we can have some questions in. That's really great. Okay. I think you're giving me way too much credit. I think you did all the heavy lifting here. So you should be able to just stop share. There you go. Good. So we'll be taking questions from the group here, and thanks for Keith for that. Yeah, it's very exciting. I know the first time that I took a telescope into a major library, it was a pretty big library, and the director was a little intimidated by the telescope, and we put it on a table, and we pointed it off to some trees through a window. You could see the trees, and there was a bug crawling across some leaves, and she looked through that telescope. We made her pick it up, and she goes, wow, this is pretty darn easy. And that was really, like you say, the telescope itself will sell the program. So you can't explain it. You know, you just have to go in and let them actually see that.
Yeah, the ladies at Cherry Valley watched a squirrel in the tree outside the window. And the Rotarians, when I was getting my first funding, watched starlings being fed across the, about 100 yards away at a storefront opposite the restaurant where they meet. So it was good.
Yeah. But we do have to remind everybody that a telescope is a little different than a terrestrial scope. This will be upside down. So it is kind of different to be looking at a squirrel climbing upside down. Well, maybe not for a squirrel, but certainly it's a different look if you're trying to watch birds or something like that with a telescope. And I should remind you, we're talking a little bit about daytime stuff. Do not look at the sun with the library telescope. It's not made for that. It will definitely burn your eyes. So Keith, what you've done a star party or two, and maybe describe what a star party is in case they don't know what a star party is.
We use a star party at the library where the patrons are, there's an appointed time. It's in the evening when there's something to see. We cancel it if the sky is completely overcast. At least we don't do the outside part. And we start out in the building with just like 4 slides where I say, this is the telescope, this is how it works, this is how you use the red dot finder. Then I march every kid that's in the group past the telescope to see the red dot and to point the telescope at something and to look through it. So after every kid has done that, then we go outside, and usually I have 2 or 3 helpers from my astronomy club. And the hard part there is to do what Dawn has said, is to let the kids do all the pointing and finding so that they feel like they're experts, because they take ownership for the use of the telescope, and they want it. After they do that a little bit, they're an expert. They want to do it. They want to go home and show mom and dad. They want to show grandpa and grandma. That's awesome. If you get that, you have that is such a great feeling. It's a wonderful thing when you're an astronomer at a public event and somebody sees Jupiter for the first time or Saturn for the first time. It's like this, oh, wow, and you hear that, and I get tingles still when I hear that. But when you see a youth point a telescope at an object and find what they're looking for and hear that exclamation from them of seeing craters on the moon or the rings of Saturn, that's a very nice thing as well.
Yeah, so for those of you not familiar with astronomers, most of us have sometimes pretty expensive equipment, and we like people to look through the lens, but we don't really want them to touch it. It's almost like we'd rather show you and entertain you and just and wow you with the stuff in the sky. It's really hard to kind of give up and say, just let them operate the telescope on their own, right? And actually let them find the thing themselves. And even if it's only the moon, in our moon, our idea only the moon, it still is something they're very impressed with, and it makes them really want to do more. And that's better than, frankly, it's just entertaining. So we do have a couple questions, and so the first question is, I live in a small town without an astronomy club. I'm interested in starting a program. Do I need to use the scope you use, or can I start by donating a scope like an Edmund Astroscan? Tom, do you want to try to answer that question? Tom Lynch is our Facebook operator. He's the guy that's got 5,000 plus Facebook followers, and so he's an amateur astronomer himself.
Hi, Don. Yeah, the reason we use the Star Blast, the Orion Star Blast, is because it's simple, it's easily transportable with the modifications. It is very easy to use, very hard to lose things. A different telescope might not have all those features, but it could. We kind of go with what we think is the best telescope out there, but there's no reason you couldn't do it with another telescope. Problem being, if there are parts that disconnect, good chance they're going to get lost. So I wouldn't want to dissuade the person from donating a telescope, because it could be well used, and but it is better. We think that, or I think that we're much better off going with the standard telescope that we've been talking about. It just makes it much more easy.
Yeah, I think the Astroscan is pretty small, as I remember. It's pretty light and you can pick it up. So, I would say we just had this conversation in our task force this week, with saying, look, we've got a telescope that a very good example, by the way, in St. Louis is that we've got probably 200 telescopes in operation now. And there's like a 400 person waiting list for just one library alone. I mean, it's like a crazy number. So a library telescope might be checked out, let's say it's 2 or 3 weeks. It could be checked out 10, 20 times a year. So it's getting use after use after use after use. So the issue of just the wear and tear, but I would say, it doesn't have to be what we do, because your situation could be just different. I would say try something and see what happens, and what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work forever, and that's okay. We have another question here. Does Friends of Library help you with fundraising with other potential donors?
Well, they could. In this particular case, the day that I showed up and pitched to the Friends, they were having their Friends meeting. And at the same time, they were getting ready for a book sale. And they I think have their own normal events that they run in our libraries for fundraising. But they certainly could help you, and they might also have ideas as to where you might go to pitch to get funding. So when you're looking for funding, everyone is your friend. You want to be friends with everybody. There is no, it's like improv. You never say no. You say yes, and try to get to the money. So that's could be a very good opportunity to let them help you fundraise and whatnot. I look at when I first started, got some great advice from Don Thicken. Don said, Keith, money's not going to be your biggest problem. Your biggest problem is going to be support going down the road, because as these telescopes roll out, you'll need a bigger team to do the scopes. And so if you can get the support, the money, you will find the money, because the money is looking for good causes, and this is a great one.
So we have another question for you, Keith. How many scopes were supplied on your first effort, and what kind of waiting list is there at the library in Rockford now?
If you knew what our winters were like, I mean, tomorrow we're supposed to get 7 inches of snow. I don't know if there's a library, if there's any telescopes that are checked out right now at that library. Last time I visited there was just a few weeks ago, and I was dropping off some of the binoculars from the library binocular program, and there was only one scope in, and it was a rainy day, and there was one scope in, so they were meant to 2 scopes.
It looks like we've got you freezing up here a little bit, Keith. I'm not sure if we lost that
out,
connection.
and people were waiting for the sky to clear program, and it ran for 1 year, and there was a backlog for the telescopes, and they had 3 telescopes. But then COVID hit and things shut down. And then things started up again, and it wasn't clear about how long they had to have the scopes sequestered to avoid sharing the virus, and all that other stuff that we didn't know as well about as we know now. And so that reduced traffic. But on average, each of those scopes has been checked out 30 times, not per year, but total. So that was over a 4-year period. So if you wanted to get a telescope in Cherry Valley, there's a good chance you could go down and get one this time of year. Now, when spring and summer come, then they'll be much more busy because the weather's nicer and people are more outdoors and thinking about looking up at the sky.
Yeah, we had the same effort with our libraries, is that they had to stop checkouts. And of course, there was a lot of staff issues with just the issue of just trying to run a library. I mean, this is just one of the many things that they're trying to do. So to see if we have any other, one of the people here I'm looking at, sorry, I'm looking over my screen. It says I had one of the couple of my telescopes were funded by Friends of the Library Group. So the Friends are usually good. Rotary clubs are usually good. Sometimes you could find individual donors. I mean, just they love to put, it's not relatively that expensive to buy. And particularly if they get a donated buy on there, it's like you say, as you mentioned, it's just something they could say that they helped out a library with. And so they love to support that. So do we have
I'm not bashful about asking people.
Yeah,
recently I'm a woodworker, and recently I made a nice little box for a guy, and he said, "What can I pay?" And I said, I don't need money. I don't want your money." And then I thought, and I said, "But if you wanted to donate a library telescope, we're getting telescopes for this library, which is the city where you used to work, and it would have your name on it, and that'd be kind of neat for your students to check out." Your old students to check out this telescope that was donated by you. I think that would be a awesome compensation. He was thrilled because he thought he was getting a bargain for the box I built for him. So everybody was happy. The library's happy. He's happy. The people that will use that telescope will be happy. And I think that was like the circle of life kind of thing. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Another way to get a telescope, the Astronomical League has a program through the Horkheimer Foundation where they donate 10 telescopes a year to clubs that are part of the Astronomical League. So if you're a member of a club that's in the Astronomical League, you can put in for these, and they sometimes they don't give them out because people don't put in for them. So it's well worth the effort to put in. And my club has won it twice over I think it's about 8-9 years that it's been run. So they've won twice, and it's well worth it to get one in such an easy way, but you have to be a member of the Astronomical League to do that.
Well, Keith, I want to thank you for your time tonight. It's very helpful. It's great to see that your program is taking off. And I think as we get, settled down from COVID, hopefully we're settling down from COVID, we'll see. And we get into summer where it's warmer for you and warmer for your patrons. And we don't forget too that there are a couple of eclipses coming up across the country, and that'll probably spur some interest in astronomy and science, that type of science. And so I think all these things could really keep making your program grow and grow. And so we appreciate your time tonight. And Tom, let's thank you for helping out tonight. And we will post this recording out either tomorrow or the next day on our YouTube account. And just go to our librarytelescope.org page and click the YouTube button up the top. We've got an entire library of these things. And so if you want to learn a little bit about this or just explore Facebook, Tom's got a lot of stuff, or some of our website web pages. And we're all volunteer groups, so we're just doing this to really try to grow this program. So thanks again, Keith and Tom, for joining us tonight, and good night, everyone.